Gather round the fire, friends. I've got a crazy tale for you all tonight. This story has everything: love, obsession, murder, and a police cover-up that spans over 20 years.
And it's unclear which side of it the suspect in this case is on. She was a 26-year veteran of the Los Angeles Police Department, by all appearances a model cop, yet Stephanie Lazarus now faces murder charges. Prosecutors say that almost 25 years ago she beat and shot the wife of an ex-boyfriend, and that DNA evidence proves it.
It all starts with a beautiful, brilliant nurse named Sherri. This woman was the whole package. Tall, blonde, smart, and determined to shake things up in the healthcare world. At just 27 years old, she was already director of nursing at a fancy hospital in LA. Sherri was going places. A guy named John enters the picture. Your typical 80s stud, long feathered hair, drives a cool car. He meets Sherri and they fall head over heels in love. They get a place in Van Nuys in Los Angeles and start planning their storybook wedding. Life is good. But there was someone lurking in the shadows with her eyes set on John. A police officer named Stephanie. Her and John had hooked up back in college at UCLA, and it's clear this cop is not over their little college fling yet. So fast forward to right before the wedding, and Stephanie starts showing up uninvited. First, she drops off water skis at John and Sherri's place. Real flimsy excuse to talk to the guy. Then she just straight up comes over one night in her uniform, gun on her hip, trying to intimidate the bride-to-be. Sherri's family is freaked. They beg John to set boundaries with this ex of his, but John isn't one for confrontation. And Stephanie? Well, she's determined to get her man back. The drama briefly settles down when John and Sherri say their I do's, but 3 months later, it all hits the fan. When John returns home from work one evening, he's met with a horrific sight. There in the living room lay his wife Sherri, lifeless in her pajamas. She had been brutally attacked, her face battered and bruised, a large bite mark on her forearm. Most disturbingly, she had been shot 3 times with a .38 caliber weapon. The bullets had ripped through her lungs, heart, and spine, causing catastrophic internal damage. Sherri had clearly endured immense suffering, attempting to crawl across the room before succumbing to her gruesome injuries. The police take one look around and decide it was just a random break-in gone bad. Case closed, high five for solving crime. Sherri's family call bullshit. Her cop stalker has got to be involved here. But the police dismiss them outright, barely even questioning Officer Stephanie before moving on. For the next 20 years, Stephanie lives her best life. She adopts a kid, sets up childcare programs in the department. Everyone thinks she's just a stellar human being. Meanwhile, Sherri's poor dad Nels is the only one still fighting for justice. He knows in his gut this wasn't just some burglary gone wrong. So he starts hounding the police, asking if they'll test DNA left at the crime scene. But they shut him down hard. Told him even with DNA, there's no suspects to compare it to. But little do the cops know, DNA testing is about to blow this sucker wide open. Flash forward to 2004, and forensic science has come a long way since the 80s. The LAPD start reopening old cold cases, thinking maybe, just maybe, they can get some new leads. They pull out Sherri's file and notice 2 things. 1, there's still that DNA sample from the killer's bite mark on Sherri's arm. And 2, there's a note that Stephanie's name came up as an old fling of the husband's. Interesting. A detective named Jim Nuttall gives Sherri's dad a call. Tells him they're going to run the DNA against their suspect list to finally get some answers. Nels is thrilled. He's positive Stephanie Lazarus' name is going to pop up and his daughter will get justice. But here's the thing. They can't just arrest Stephanie and be like, hey, can we swab your mouth real quick so we can prove you're a murderer? No. To get her DNA, they needed to be sly about it. So they came up with a plan straight out of a crime show. One day, Stephanie goes into the break room and grabs a soda. She crumples it up when she's done and tosses it into the trash. Detective Jim is watching her every move from the one-way glass. The second she leaves, he jumps up, fishes it out of the garbage, and rushes it down to the lab. And guess whose spit was a match to the killer's from the bite mark? Officer Stephanie Lazarus. Can you believe it? After 20 years, they finally cracked the case. So, next Jim and his partner set up a little trap to bring Lazarus in for questioning. They call her downstairs for a consult on one of her old cases, knowing she'll have to check her gun if she enters that wing of the building. It's just a standard precaution. But when Stephanie walks through those doors, click, the cold steel handcuffs lock around the cop's wrists for the very first time. They get her alone in the interrogation room and basically ambush her, asking her things that don't quite add up, like how she first says she barely knows Sherri. Then a few minutes later, she's recalling arguments they used to have over the husband John. Sketch City. Stephanie refuses to admit she had any part in Sherri's death.
I mean, well, are you guys, is this something, I mean, you said I was going to interview somebody about art, and how you guys are, here's...
But she knows things are not looking good, and eventually she says, I want my lawyer. They immediately back that cop car out of the garage and take her straight to county jail. Her bail? A cool $10 million. They say Stephanie slipped into Sherri's house while John was at work that morning through their unlocked door. Sherri confronted her at the top of the stairs, and Stephanie fired 2 shots, missing initially. Then, bam, bam, bam. 3 kill shots right in Sherri's heart, lungs, and spine. She bit Sherri's arm during their struggle, then wrapped the gun in a blanket when she finished her off to muffle the noise. Drove Sherri's car a few blocks away to make it look like a carjacking. Then a few weeks later, conveniently reported her off-duty weapon stolen, the same one that fired those 38 slugs into Sherri's lifeless body. It took 23 long years, but Sherri's family finally gets their justice when Stephanie Lazarus was convicted of first-degree murder. While justice was eventually served, the failures that allowed Stephanie Lazarus to walk free for over 2 decades still cast an uneasy shadow. Her case prompts uncomfortable questions about bias and accountability within the LAPD that remain unanswered to this day. Though Stephanie will likely die in prison, Sherri's loved ones continue to grieve her loss while struggling to make sense of it all.